I pull into the gravel drive of my lake cabin, expecting silence and peace, but the second my tires crunch the rocks, I know something is wrong. Four strange cars crowd the space where only mine should be. My chest tightens as I brake. This place was supposed to be my retreat, my reward for another brutal week at work. I just wanted quiet water and a book. Instead, voices echo from the backyard. Too many voices. Laughter, orders. The wooden gate is wide open like a warning. Through it, I glimpse something unreal. An arch draped in white. My stomach drops. I hurry forward, dread clawing at me. Then I see it. My lawn, my sanctuary, has been stolen, transformed into a venue. Rows of chairs stretch across my grass, a massive tent swallows the far corner, strangers hang lights from my porch, and in the center of it all stands my sister, clipboard in hand, commanding everyone. "String those lights higher," she orders. "We need a glow for the first dance." Her tone sharp, practiced. My blood chills. I stay frozen watching her play queen. "Lift the roses, more drama," she commands. Drama. Catering. First dance. My head spins. My sister's wedding? With Ethan, her boyfriend of 8 months. No word of engagement, no mention to me, and yet here, on my property, without asking. Gravel crunches as I finally step closer. Her eyes catch mine. For a heartbeat, guilt. Then she masks it with a smile. "Perfect timing," she calls, waving me over, as if I'm staff, not family. "We need your thoughts on seating charts." My voice scrapes out. "What is this?" She beams brighter. "Oh, didn't Mom tell you? The ceremony's next Saturday. You came just in time to help." Help. My throat tightens. This cabin was my dream, my freedom. 5 years of sacrifice, double shifts, missed dinners, sleepless nights, and now it's hijacked, dressed for someone else. A woman in a blazer strides toward me, her handshake firm, rehearsed. "You must be the generous sibling." "I'm Camille, the planner. This venue is perfect." Her words cut like glass. Venue. Generous. My eyes snap to a table stacked high. Invitations. Thick, embossed, expensive. I grab one. My fingers shake. "Ethan and Serena invite you. Celebrate their marriage at the Lakeview cabin." My cabin. My name stripped away. My heart slams against my ribs. I hear my own pulse, louder than the crowd. Suddenly, I'm back 5 years ago, standing right here with keys in hand, trembling, proud, unstoppable. Every overtime shift, every saved dollar, every night I cried myself to sleep. It was all for this place. My place. And now, it's been claimed like a prize. My jaw clenches. My hands shake. I worked until my bones ached for this. And they treat it like borrowed space? I hear my mother's voice in my head. Too much space for just one person. She never saw my sacrifice as enough. Never saw this home as mine. Only as the family's future playground. I swallow hard. Heat burning my throat. The planner's voice fades into noise. The laughter stings worse than betrayal. This is my dream, my fight, my sweat, and they are stealing it in daylight. My hands curl into fists at my sides. The invitation crumples in my palm. My sister beams like a queen on her throne. I see the truth behind her smile. She thinks I am powerless to stop her, but she has no idea who I have become. No idea what I endured to stand here. and no idea that I will not let this pass. This isn't just about a wedding. This is about erasing me from my own life. I lift my eyes steady, now colder. She will not see me crumble. She will see what happens when I fight. The roses smell sweet, but the air tastes bitter. The lights twinkle, but my vision sharpens. This is not their paradise. This is my battleground. And as I stare at Serena smile, a single vow forms inside me. They may take my yard, but not my victory. They said I should have chosen a place we could all share and split the cost. They framed it as smart planning for everyone, while my name sat on the deed. Serena lifted a glass and chirped about endless family weekends here. She called it perfect for gatherings, already picturing her crowd. She promised to bring friends down for long, sunny stretches by the water. I held a thin smile and felt my hold on the house start to slip. Ownership faded in the noise, even though the title was mine alone. Since that day, the boundaries wore down, one casual step at a time. The erosion never stopped because no one wanted to hear no. Parents arrived with dinner guests and no warning or text. Serena borrowed the place for getaways that stretched into weeks. The emergency key I gave to my mother quietly multiplied into copies. People came and went like it was a clubhouse with open doors. I would find drawers moved and the coffee beans emptied again. I cleaned their plates and gathered their towels like staff. My books shifted shelves and my tools walked to other corners. Soft reminders met a soft wall and then a smile that dismissed them. Each time, they said the same line, "We are family, relax." They waved away boundaries like smoke and called respect a formality. A polished voice tugged me back to the present and the chaos. The planner said Serena told her I was thrilled to host. She said the team had worked the details for a long time. Months of decisions made, as if my porch were a public hall. They had built a whole event on my ground without consent. Something inside me moved like a lock turning for the first time. I was always the steady one and the shield for everyone else. I made peace and paid costs and called it love for family. Now the return for years of grace was silence and taking. For one hot second, I pictured ripping down every strand light. I saw myself clearing the lawn and ending the party with one word. Instead, a cooler calm settled in, and my choices sharpened. I spoke in a level voice and stepped away from the crowd. "Excuse me," I said, and my path aimed straight for my car. Serena called my name, as if the sound alone could stop me. She asked where I was going and said they needed my help. She wanted my hands on a chart and my silence on the rest. I kept moving with the keys tight in my palm like an anchor. She warned me not to be difficult and talked about duty. Family duty rang in the air, while no one named respect. The word chased me into the car and hung in the cabin. Obligation had always meant my time and my money and my space. It rarely meant care in return when I was the one in need. As I rolled away, I saw her face tighten in the mirror. It was the look she wore when a plan did not bend to her. For the first time in years, guilt did not climb into the seat. The old weight slipped off and a new steel took its place. The more I drove, the clearer it felt to draw a line. By the time I reached the city, the decision had set.
I coasted through blocks until the turn to my apartment. My fingers were pale and tight on the wheel from the strain.
The image of my shoreline heaven kept replaying in loops. Every frame felt like a trespass I could not ignore. I set my bag on the counter and let myself breathe. I sank to the couch while my mind kept racing the same track. The phone rattled on the table and would not stop buzzing. Calls from my sister and my mother stacked into a wall. Another buzz from my father with the short line to return a call. I let them sit and opened the laptop with a steady hand. I typed the names and the word wedding into a search. Pages filled the screen, and my gut tightened as I scrolled. At the top was a glossy board of themes and colors. It had been created months ago, with my house as the star. The plan had lived in public while I was kept in the dark. Next, I opened photos that showed smiles on my porch rails. They raised glasses on my steps under my string lights. The caption bragged about a final walkthrough at the perfect place. They thanked a generous sister and tagged a long guest list. There was talk of a crowd and a long weekend in my haven. The comments poured praise about kindness and family spirit. They called me selfless when never checking for my consent. People wrote that the venue was a gift from the heart. They promised the guests would love my view and my dock. They spoke about paradise as if it were a public beach. The words hammered at my temples until they pulsed. They said donate as if I had signed a form and smiled. No one had asked. They simply took and named it generosity. A new alert blinked at the corner of the screen while I read. A private note came from the man set to stand at the altar. He said he was sorry for the mess and wished we had talked. He said he urged a real ask and that this path was not his. I stared at the words and felt a mix of anger and relief. Then the phone lit again with the fresh call from my mother. I answered and kept my tone even while my mind lined up facts. She asked what I was thinking by driving off from the setup. She said the planner needed input and time was short now. She spoke as if my duty was to fix a problem I did not cause. I cut in and asked if she knew the plan had skipped my consent. I asked if she knew the whole event was planted in my yard. There was a pause that told me she was weighing the truth. She finally said, "Of course they knew," and downplayed my concern. She said I barely used the place and this was practical. While she talked, I scrolled through our old threads for clarity. My eyes landed on messages I had ignored during busy weeks. Buried lines hinted at plans that should have raised alarms. One thread made it plain that a lot had been decided without me. It showed how limits loosen when no one defends the gate. It showed the cost of always being the easy yes in the room. And it showed me exactly where to start setting new lines. A single text from my mother to my father sealed what came next.
Mom wrote that I would not mind the wedding plan at all. She said I barely used the place and Serena needed it. Dad replied asking if they should at least tell me first. Mom answered no and said silence would keep things simple. She added that I might overthink and slow everything down. Serena claimed asking later was easier than asking now. Forgiveness over permission, their motto in writing. The timestamp showed it all happened 4 months ago. I heard my mother talking again on the line. Her voice cut through, but I was done explaining. I said I had to go and ended the call clean. For the next hour, I dug through every thread and link. I found a family group chat that never included me. Dozens of messages planned my home like a venue. Cousins mapped carpools and aunts debated chair counts. They treated my house like a community center on the bay. Every line assumed a happy yes I never gave. I went to my file cabinet and pulled the deed. I smoothed the paper with shaking hands. It listed only my name as the owner, Rain Elizabeth Bennett. No partners, no co-signers. The statement showed each payment drawn from my account. The numbers were a history of work and grit. Utilities and insurance and repairs all paid by me. Every receipt told the same clean story. The truth landed with the weight of a javel. This was no longer just about a pretty view. This was about respect and the right to say no. I searched state law on trespass and private property use. I added terms on liability and event permits. Then I ran numbers for water, power, and waste for days. I counted guests and trucks and tents and cleanup risk. The totals climbed fast and the risk list grew longer. One fall on wet steps could become a lawsuit. The thought tightened my chest and focused my mind. My phone rang. It was Marlene from college. She asked about a wedding invite she just received. She said the card named my beach house as the site. She wanted to know when I became a host. I told her the whole story without breaking. My voice steadied as the facts lined up. Marlene said I was right to be angry and to act. She called it outrageous and beyond a mix-up. She asked what I planned to do about it now. I said I was done playing the doormat in my own life. The next day at work, James noticed my silence. I gave him the short version over our lunch. He nodded like he had lived this story before. He said family often crosses lines with a smile. He guessed they expected me to accept it.
I asked how he knew, and he gave a small shrug. He said it keeps happening until the locks change. He told me to stand firm and mean every word. He said entitlement loves a soft boundary. He said clarity sounds harsh only to takers. I heard him and felt the plan in me harden. That afternoon, my beach neighbors sent a note. They saw constant traffic in and out of my house. They asked if everything was fine or if I needed help. The warning settled the last loose piece in place. I left work early and headed for the coast. From across the street, I watched the parade. Workers hauled boxes and racks through my door. I saw Serena point and wave like a foreman. The sight made my choice feel overdue. I drove to the hardware store for parts. I bought new locks and a set of cameras. I scheduled a locksmith and waited nearby in the car. When Serena left the street, the van rolled in. An hour later, the doors clicked with a new code. By sunset, the house was sealed and quiet again. I drove home and opened my laptop to write. I drafted a clear email to the entire family list. Subject line set the topic as beach house access. I wrote that new rules applied at once. Anyone who wanted entry had to ask me first. I listed the address so no one would pretend confusion. I noted that permission and timing came through me only. I added a line that locks had changed for safety. I signed it with my full name and pressed send without pause. The phone lit up and rang, but I muted it. Messages poured in and stacked on the screen. My mother told me to stop being absurd because we were family. She asked for the spare key like it was routine. My father told me to call her because she was upset. Serena called and I let it roll over to voicemail. Her recorded voice shook with anger. She said I was selfish and ruining her plans. She said months of work were at risk because of me. I sent one calm reply and kept it short. I stated the property was mine and paid by me. I said no one used it without my permission again. Then I silenced alerts and went back to research. A local tourism feature flashed on my screen. They listed a company seeking coastal rentals. They wanted quality homes for visiting executives. They offered vetted guests and insured stays. It was called Sandpiper Beach Tour Company. They needed a few properties near the dunes. I clicked to their contact page and paused.
The company's site asked for unique homes to feature for premium guests. They highlighted curated stays and a network of high-end clients. My cursor hovered over the contact form while I breathed.
For the first time in days, a steady calm settled through me. I pictured control returning to my hands one clause at a time. I downloaded their agreement and read the language line by line. Each paragraph mapped a boundary, and I saw my path. 3 hours later, the plan stood up on firm legs. I listed contingencies for every way my family might react. If they begged, if they argued, if they pushed the line, I documented the condition of each room with time-stamped photos. I noted paint scuffs, outlets, locks, and windows. I pulled market rates for short-term coastal rentals. I built a schedule and a damage deposit that made sense. I added terms that protected entry keys and guest counts. Then I signed with Sandpiper Beach under clear terms. The cursor blinked on submit, and I clicked without fear. That click felt like a bridge I would not cross back. I knew it was the point of no return, and welcomed it. 2 days later, my phone buzzed for what felt like the dozenth time. By then, I had been counting the hits on the screen. Every vibration ticked against my desk at the bank. It rattled the wood while I tried to work. At Coastal Florida Bank, I stared at a loan file. Focus kept slipping like sand through my hand. Another alert flashed, Serena calling again and again. A preview line said I was being ridiculous. I muted the phone and turned it face down. 3 more messages stacked in a row on silent. The buzz felt like angry wasps trapped under glass. I kept my eyes on the form and filled another line. More muted taps rolled across the desktop in waves. Each one reminded me why the line had to hold. James leaned from the next cube and asked if home was calm. He read my face before I spoke a word. Our eyes met over the divider and he waited. Concern cut a light crease between his brows. I said my family had finally learned what a boundary was. I said they found it and did not like how it felt. He nodded as the elevator chimed on the main floor. I glanced up at the ding and saw a familiar figure. My stomach dropped when my mother stepped out. She marched across marble like a mission in heels. Purpose sharpened every line in her face in stride. Her shoulders were set and her jaw was locked. Anyone watching could read her goal from 10 paces. She wore the polished church committee suit, blue linen, pearls, and pumps that announce arrival. I whispered she would not dare, and knew she would. Of course she would. This was exactly her move.
James asked if that was my mom and sank lower. I stood up before she could reach my desk and waved. I met her by the water cooler to stop the scene. I said hello and kept my voice even and low. She said this was the only place she could reach me now. Her tone carried just far enough to draw eyes. She named my calls ignored and my locks changed. She shaped it like a charge before the office. A few keyboards paused and the room tilted our way. But old me would have rushed to hide the moment. I would have steered her to a back hall to hush it. Instead, a clear cool settled over my chest. I felt like stepping into shade on a hot day. "We can talk after work," I said with steady calm. I offered Bayside Cafe at 5:30 sharp. She said Serena was devastated and the venue was perfect. She asked if I understood what I had done to the plan. I repeated 5:30 in a lower, firmer tone. I added, "or not at all," and let it sit. She blinked twice in surprise and turned on her heel. She left with heels that sounded a little less sure. James let out a low whistle when I sat back down. He said that was impressive, and I almost laughed. I was as stunned as he was by the calm in me. That evening, I drove to Coral Gables to meet them. The lot was bright and the air was thick with salt. I was not sure what I would face, but I felt ready. Inside, I saw the family through the front windows. They had picked our usual corner table in the back. It looked staged, like a meeting with a script. It was as close to an intervention as a dinner gets. They were seated in a line like a small jury. Through the glass, I counted Mother, Father, and Serena. Next to them sat Aunt Linda, the old arbiter of shame. Her frown had ruled me since I was a kid in church. Marlene sat beside me in the car and watched. She said I did not have to go in at all tonight. She called herself my boundary bodyguard with a grin. I smiled back and felt the calm return again. I said I would go in because the line mattered now. We walked in together and I stood at the table edge. Serena opened before I could sit or even breathe. She launched into the speech she had rehearsed. She said her dream wedding was now shattered to pieces. She said it with eyes that shone the way they do on cue. She said the backup site was small and inland. She said it was nothing like the water view she wanted. She added that his family was now questioning plans. My father cleared his throat to try to cool the room. "Pumpkin," he began, and the table leaned toward his voice.
Dad said he understood I was shocked by the plan. He asked if we could find a path forward. He spoke like a bridge could fix a breach this wide. My mother added that they had done so much for me. Her voice trembled like I owed a debt without terms. She said she'd changed careers to give us chances. She said years of rides and lessons proved her point. She named piano like it was a contract I signed. I said I begged to stop after 3 months. I said 8 years of no did not make it yes. Aunt Linda leaned in and called it family duty. She said real support means giving what is asked. She said my grandfather would shame this choice. The table went still at his name. Grandpa Joe still ruled rooms from memory. They had reached for the last lever of pressure. I drew a slow breath and faced Serena head on. I asked her to name one time she asked first. One clear moment she sought permission and waited. I asked for one example and left the air quiet. She blinked and stalled and said she did not recall. I asked again for a single, careful call. One time she checked and honored my answer. Her mouth opened and closed with no words. I asked for one weekend left as found. No moved chairs, no missing mugs, no new dents. I turned to my parents and asked for one visit. No extras, no drop-ins, no surprise guests. One time it was treated as my home, not the lodge. One time it was mine and not the family compound. Silence stretched like a rope across the table. "You cannot name one," I said with a steady voice. The weight in my words came from years of notes. It never happened, and that truth finally stood up. Mother rallied and called me vindictive for this stand. Marlene set her phone on the table to speak. She said she had something everyone should see. She tapped a calendar open to a long list. She showed a note I made 7 months ago. It tracked each time I asked for a simple call. "Please text first before coming over." 26 requests in 3 years with replies saved. Each entry had dates and answers in plain lines. James helped us pull the record from threads. We combed texts and emails I had buried. We found messages I had tried to forget. Seeing it in order had stunned even me. Ignored boundaries read like dates on a ledger. Dad shifted in his seat and cleared his throat. He said there had been some miscommunications. He tried to sand the edges off the facts. His words could not smooth down the record. "It is settled now," I said and kept it crisp. "The house is under contract for weekends. Sandpiper tours booked 3 in a row. One date is the day Serena had marked. The agreement is signed and the deposit cleared." Serena dropped her tears and snapped to a glare. "You what?" she said as the room pulled tight. I slid a folder across with clean edges. The rental terms sat inside, plain and lawful. That night, I closed the last open loop. The tour contract rested signed at home. My attorney letter sat ready to send. It confirmed exclusive rights to my property. It waited to use if a line was crossed. The new cameras fed live clips to my phone. I watched the porch glow in quiet frames. A text from Thomas arrived while I changed. He wrote that he respected my decision. He said he could not say it in public yet. He said the path had been wrong from the start. For a beat, doubt tried to edge back in. A picture rose of strangers in my drawers. I remembered last year and the party mess, hands on my photos and names I did not know. The memory cleared the fault from my mind. This was not revenge. This was self-respect. I thought of chairs moved and tools missing. I thought of things borrowed and never back. I thought of the casual way rules were bent. I saw my name on the deed like a steady line. I recalled the night with 16 strangers. Music shook glass and feet marked floors. My life lay open to people I did not know. They held my frames and guessed my stories. What was mine had been treated like a free shelf. What was theirs stayed wrapped and guarded. A long weight I carried began to lift. Air moved easier in my chest as I stood. For the first time, the house felt fully mine. I felt like its owner, not its keeper. Tomorrow might bring more calls and tears. It might bring hard words and louder claims. Tonight brought certainty and a quiet room. This was what freedom felt like to me. I set the phone down and let the dark be calm. I slept in clean sheets with an easy breath. No knots, no jolts, just rest that held. Morning broke with a clear and simple thought. Morning light cut through the blinds like a promise. Their anger only proved I chose the right path. This home was mine from day one and still is. The day before the ceremony, I prepared. I had already said no at dinner and meant it. From my car across the street, I watched. Through binoculars, I saw them take over my yard. They turned my quiet place into a command center. Everything unfolded the way I knew it would. Serena stood in the middle like a director. She waved the clipboard and pointed at Cruz. Her voice carried orders across my grass. She demanded a perfect arch with a C behind. 2 men wrestled the frame while she counted beats. She called for symmetry and shine. She told them to shift the white wood again. She wanted chairs in a curve and not in rows. She mocked straight lines like a school event. My mother knelt in the beds by the porch. She tucked roses and baby breath in stone. She spoke to petals like old friends. She smiled at memories only she could hear. Maybe stories from her wedding years ago. My father trailed the caterer and nodded often. He agreed with everything and checked his watch. He paced and tried to look in control. I checked my own watch and counted down inside. Right on cue, a white van turned in. It bore the tour company logo in blue. 2 more vehicles eased in behind it. Engines clicked as the line came to rest. 7 uniformed staff stepped onto the drive. They carried clipboards, cases, and cables. From my seat, I saw confusion spread fast. Faces tightened and hands paused mid-air. The tour manager looked calm and ready. She was tall, with silver hair pulled back. She walked to Serena with the hand out. Her greeting was crisp and professional. Even at a distance, I read the shift. Serena straightened like a board under stress. Her head tilted in that "I refuse" look. You could see a plan begin to crack. I started the engine but stayed put. I wanted the moment to play out clean. My phone buzzed with a text from the manager. She wrote that contact was made on site. She said the contract was presented as planned. I pictured the paper open to the key page. My signature and date shone clear. 3 weeks old and airtight in its terms. The dates showed a corporate retreat reserved. Arrival tomorrow morning at 9. Setup began this very afternoon by clause. Exclusive use for the entire weekend period. My phone lit up with the wave of calls. Mother, father, mother again, and then Serena. I let each one slide into voicemail. I would not break the timing I set. This moment worked because I did not rush. Through the lenses, I saw 3 cars arrive. They squeezed into the crowded driveway. Early guests by the way they dressed. My father hurried over and lifted his hands. He tried to explain with fast motions. A woman covered her mouth at the news.
Faces turned sharp with shock and blame. When Serena called for the 6th time, I answered. She asked what I had done to cause this. Her voice shook with anger, barely held. I greeted her first and kept my tone steady. I said hello and waited for a beat. She said people claimed a contract on the house. She said it was set for tomorrow morning. She shouted that her ceremony was also tomorrow. I reminded her it was my house, not a venue. She screamed that I could tell them to leave. She said she held the power to clear them out. I said she never asked, and that was the point. I said I bought, maintained, and now rented it. I said money, time, and choice had been mine. I said I made a lawful lease by choice. She said everyone knew about the ceremony. I said knowing is not asking and never was. I said this is the cost of assuming a yes. Ask for permission, not a favor after. She told me to fix it and to make the calls. Her panic bled through the line in quick waves. I said the house was not available at all. Not tomorrow, not this weekend, and not by demand. I ended the call and watched the street. My mother worked her phone like a switchboard. She was likely calling every hall within miles. My father guided guests back to their cars. Serena argued in sharp motions with the planner. Her hands drew frantic lines in the air. They paced the lawn like a stage in chaos. Then my phone pinged with a new wave. Alerts stacked up as the hour turned. Social feeds lit with posts from relatives and friends.
Posts shifted from hype to sudden doubt. People asked why the beach plan changed. Confusion replaced the sunset emojis fast. A cousin wrote and tagged half the family. They asked what happened to the generous sister. 20 minutes later, Thomas called my phone. His voice came calm and careful and steady. He said he had felt uneasy for months. He said not asking never sat right. He thanked me for drawing the line at last. I thanked him for saying the quiet part. He said his parents offered their backyard. He said it was not the beach but workable. He said with quick effort they could make space. He paused and said he understood my choice. After the call, my screen lit with a new text. It was from Aunt Gloria, and it surprised me. She wrote that the old plan felt off. She said using my place without asking was wrong. She said holding the line took courage and care. Staff from the tour team kept working. They set beach chairs in rows facing water. They placed placards about tides and turtles. They laid out a neat check-in table. The front porch looked ready for names and badges. I drove off with the quiet in my chest. My place was being used by consent. Every step was inside the line I set. Respect held firm and the rules stayed clear. A new feeling unfurled like a sail. It felt simple and bright in my ribs. 3 days later, the bell rang at home. I was filing the last page when it sounded. Through the peephole, I saw my parents waiting. They stood shoulder to shoulder and tense. Their posture said judgment before words. I breathed in, set the photo, and opened. My mother used my full name like a charge. Her voice shook between heat and tears. She said, "How could I shame my sister so?" She said I had wrecked a special day. My father stood back and burned quiet. He let the weight of silence press in. He said sacrifice and asked for payback. He asked how I could do this to family. I stepped aside and offered them seats. Calm took the place where panic used to live. I gestured toward the living room for talk. They looked surprised that I did not flare up. I asked them to sit, and we walked to the couch.
On the table, 3 glasses waited on coasters. I had laid them out because I knew this was coming. They expected tears or sharp defense. Instead, I kept my voice level and clear. We sat, and I let the quiet do work. I had been ready for this talk for days. My mother said I needed to fix it now. She said I should make a public apology. She said I owed costs for the change. She said the new yard barely worked at all. My father leaned in with his deal-making voice. He said mistakes happen, but this was family. He warned I could be cut off if I refused.
His tone tried to sound gentle and firm. He spoke like a contract I should sign. I said I had something I wanted to show. I slid a thick blue folder toward them. I placed it in the center of the table. My mother eyed it but did not touch. She asked what it was with a cool stare. I said it was records and kept it plain. I opened it and turned the first page. She asked what it was supposed to prove. I said documentation and let the words sit. I said it covered 5 years at the house. I said it showed the lines crossed in order. I said I arranged it by date with care. Their faces shifted from anger to doubt. Confusion softened the edges of their eyes. I laid out photos page by page. Red wine on my grandmother's quilt. A small party left 17 bottles behind. Burn marks on deck chairs from careless hands. Ash still showed on the arm in the shot. Mud tracked across a white bedroom rug. A dog had run wild while no one asked. I said I had been quiet far too long. My voice stayed even though my heart pounded. Each request for respect had been brushed off. Each line I drew had been crossed again. I repeated that I had set boundaries clearly. My father shifted and called it wear and tear. He tried to shrink damage to a shrug. I said this was not normal use at all. I placed a stack of receipts on the table. I told them to look at the signatures. Every cost was mine, and I had asked for nothing. My mother flushed and said we were family. She said we should not need invites or roles. I said real family starts with basic respect. I cut her off with a calm that surprises even me. The house is mine, and that is the beginning and end. My name sits alone on the deed and the loan. I place the paperwork in a neat stack between us. I slide forward statements that carry only my name, insurance and taxes, and every signed page. All of it ties to me and no one else. My father begins to say I had no right to this choice. I tap the deed and say I had every right to choose. I had the right to lease to a company I trust. Their eyes widen as I unlock my phone and scroll. I open a clip from the new camera feed. It shows a day 3 months back, clear as noon. My mother walks 6 strangers through my room. She opens drawers and calls it our family beach house. I say, this is private property and not a share. I say it is not a family timeshare in disguise. I place Serena's invite on top of the pile. I say the event was planned without consent. My mother lifts the card with a shaking hand. For the first time, her eyes show a crack. I tell them my terms if they want this to heal. I say there are rules for any visit now. For the first time, I see her listening hard. I say, if you want a future with me, we follow this. I pull a single page that lists the basics. No one arrives without clear permission. Advance notice and confirmation are required. All copies of my keys must come home to me now. My father's face hardens as he leans forward. He says, I cannot dictate terms to family. I say I can and I am. And I hold his eyes. These are not favors, but requirements. The pause that follows feels like a change of weather. My mother studies the paper and the photos. She looks at the years spread on the table. It is the shape of all the times I was ignored. She whispers that she never saw what I carried. Her voice is smaller and closer to real. My father rubs his face and looks older. He says they did not think and did not mean harm. He says intent was clean, even if steps were not. I say, intent does not erase the mark it leaves. I gather the folder and set it aside. I say, I love you, but the line holds. I will not trade this boundary for peace. The power shift settles into the room. Old tools like guilt and tears go dull. Threats of exile do not move the air. Their words fall quiet like empty shells.
My father takes a breath and reaches down. He sets a key on the wood of the table. My mother hesitates and then adds her key. She says Serena holds one more copy. I nod and say I will collect it myself. My father warns that Serena will not take this well. I say her feelings are not my job to carry. They stand to go and the door paused ringers. My mother asks if I will come to Sunday dinner. I say I will let her know by Thursday. I hold her eyes so the pattern resets. She nods once and accepts the new rhythm. Something easier moves between us. It is not warm yet, but it is honest. After they leave, the quiet grows large. My heart races with the lightness, not fear. It feels like a room with open windows. For the first time, I feel their weight lift off me. Expectations slide away like wet sand. I pick up the keys and hear the soft clink. They shine like small medals on the table. I place them in the drawer and close it slow. They sit as symbols of a line now honored. I know the fight is not over with Serena. She will push again, but I am ready. For now, I have reclaimed what matters most: my home, my rules, and my time. Morning suns spill across the deck like gold. I sit on the swing and let it hold me. The cup in my hands warms my fingers. 6 months pass and the house feels new. No surprise guests and no moved chairs. No late texts begging for the weekend. Peace sits here like a chair that fits right. I chose new cushions and love the color. The soft teal reminds me of noon tides. I run a hand along the fabric and smile. The shelves hold books that belong to me. No stacks of old magazines. The space reads like my life and no one else's. Wind chimes ring a small, clear note. The sound has become a marker for calm. I breathe with the rhythm of the shore. This is how a home should feel inside. I say the words out loud to seal them. 2 sandpipers dart along the wet line. They skip in and out of the thin surf. The scene lays quiet and right before me. My phone buzzes with a text from James. He writes, "Hope the weekend is yours to enjoy."
Congrats again on the promotion, Banks. Lucky to have you leading commercial loans. The step-up came after I pitched my plan. I refused to let the VP take my work. Something shifted when I spoke up in the room. I said I built the strategy and would present it. The courage from home followed me to work. It colored every choice I made after. Last Saturday, I had dinner with my parents. It was the first time in months. The talk felt stiff at first, but kind. They honored the lines I said. Dad asked before pouring more water. Mom thanked me for coming the next day. She did not assume a new date. Some relatives still do not get it. Aunt Patricia says I hold a grudge. Uncle C says family should have open doors. I accept that not everyone will adjust. Thomas calls once in a while. They married in his parents' garden. It turned out beautiful despite the scramble. He sounds sincere when we speak. He wants a better way to relate. Your sister's learning, he told me. Slowly, but she is trying. At 11, the doorbell chimes. Serena stands on my porch with folded hands. Thank you for letting me visit, she says. She waits for me to invite her in. We walk to the kitchen for a simple lunch. She studies the photos I moved. They're present, but not the focus now. I like what you did here, she says. She sits where I gesture and breathes out. We drift through safe topics for a while. Then she looks down at her plate. I never thought about how we treated your place. I just assumed it was partly ours. Partly yours, I finish for her. She nods and says, I'm sorry. The words feel fragile, but real. At 4, she checked her watch and stands. I should go, she says with a small smile. Thank you for respecting my time, I say. We walk to the door side by side. Maybe we could do this again, she asks. I would like that, I answer and mean it. Later, I sit on the deck with friends, Marlene and 2 from my pottery class.
We pour wine into mismatched glasses. We laugh as the sun slides down. Orange and pink sweep the sky clean. A text from Serena lights the phone. Thanks for today, she writes. Looking forward to next time, with permission. I smile and set the phone aside. I rejoin the small, bright circle of talk. The boundaries did not shrink life. They made room for better ties. Respect replaced duty, and it shows. The ocean air smells like salt and hope. Evening gathers soft around us. For the first time in years, I feel fully at home, in my own space and my own life. Weeks turn and habits hold. Invites come with questions, not demands. No one shows up with a spare key. I frame the deed and hang it by the desk. It reminds me what yes and no mean. I keep the porch swing oiled and quiet. I keep my calendar clean on Sundays. Sometimes I say no and stay with the book. Sometimes I say yes and it fits. A gull cries and the tide runs silver. I breathe like the shore breathes back. Marlene clinks a glass and grins. To clear lines and good friends, she says. We toast the small, strong changes. We toast the peace of chosen company. A breeze threads the chimes with the gentle notes. I let the sounds settle into the room of me. My phone stays face down as the sun dips. The sky goes rose, then violet, then blue. Lights come on in the houses up the beach. Waves write soft lines on the sand. I think of all the doors I closed and opened. I think of the yes I saved for myself. Serena sends a photo of her garden lights. She says they dance like ours used to. I tell her they look beautiful. She replies with a simple thank you. I hear in it a quieter kind of love, the kind that asks before it takes. Night settles and the air cools soft. We gather plates and promise another night. I lock the door. I own and choose. I turn off lights that answer to me. In the quiet, I say one small truth. This is my home, and I live it on purpose.